Melissa, and are you muted?
Yeah.
No, we're not. I will. Later.
All right, thank you, everyone. So welcome. This is Manhattan Community Board 5, the Executive Committee meeting. So we'll just start it on our agenda with committee reports, starting with landmarks.
All right, thank you, Brad. So we actually had 5 applications. First application was for an individual landmark, 1356 Broadway, known as Greenwich Savings Bank, also known as the Hare Building. They wanted to legalize an existing condition, which they previously did not get approval for and have a violation. This condition is a red awning. It doesn't necessarily fit with the architecture. We had a unanimous denial at committee, 11-0-0, because not only does this violation exist, but previously they've also come before the committee in 2016 to legalize multiple unpermitted alterations that were already done. They didn't necessarily follow through on those. When we asked them if the presenters had previously come, they denied it. They said management was different. None of that is actually true. So we were dealing with a bad actor with history violations. Unanimous to deny this application. 500 Fifth Avenue.
Quickly, any questions on that?
Sorry.
Comments? All right, keep going.
Yeah, so our second application was 500 Fifth Avenue. This was only for exterior accent painting restoration. This too was an individual, or is an individual landmark. It's pretty straightforward. 2 carved eagles and the building number 500 on the exterior of the building. They're currently unpainted. The applicant wants to paint the eagles and the number 500 match the same gold painting that's found on the main entrance. We had a unanimous approval on this application. 12-0-0.
Questions? Comments?
Our third application was 15 East 26th Street. This is a district landmark, Madison Square North Historic District. This is the back of the residential building, the loading dock, if you will. They wanted to put 4, I believe, exterior sconces on the back of the building, 27th Street side of their own wanting, to add light. I thought it was a public benefit. We had a mixed vote on this one. Committee ultimately ruled deny unless 9-3-0-0, saying that the sconces were too modern, did not match the historic Madison Square District aesthetic. And so the deny unless the applicant, considered more historic, more appropriate.
Questions? Comments? Okay, next one.
Okay, our third application, or fourth application. Yeah, fourth application, for 894 900 Broadway in Ladies Mile. So it is a district landmark. This is also a simple one. They just wanted to restore the main entrance to what the aesthetic was historically. They wanted to remove the aluminum and molding and restore the cast iron found underneath. So this had a unanimous approval. 1200.
Questions? Comments?
Can I make a comment on the previous?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Something that had come up, I'm not saying we've addressed this now, something that has come up at recent full board meetings is asking the presenter to represent the minority opinion. That might happen. I say only because that might happen for them. Do we have a recommendation to committee chair, when the people who made those arguments are also sitting in the room and could speak for themselves? Do you or we have a recommendation to chairs on how to handle that? Because we seem to not have a aligned sort of opinion on what we recommend chairs do when they're asked to present.
Yeah, I mean.
And there also, there's a thing in our bylaws that says we should,
Right.
but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, without trying to be a mind reader, you can represent the arguments that were made in the committee against this resolution, but if the person is sitting right there, I think the appropriate thing to do is, here's generally what we heard, but if you want more specifics, those people are also here and are more than welcome to speak up. I think
Okay.
that's probably the way we should handle it, so that we're not trying to
Right.
pretend, like, what.
Yeah, I think it's,
people
I mean,
do.
I think. I don't wanna like call people out, but if like you're sitting there and you said something at committee and you voted against something, like.
Yeah, I don't think you need to, as a chair, say, that person said, no, ask
Yeah.
them, but like, I think you can say, this is what it was.
Okay.
There are other
Right.
people here who had a different opinion, they're more than welcome to speak it
Right.
in the comment section.
This just seems to be coming up more, so I want to.
So
Appreciate that.
I am a minority opinion. You know,
In this case, it is unusual that the presenter is the person who had a minority
but I
opinion.
didn't go into
Right,
why.
Right.
I represented what the committee
Right.
voted for, but if you'd like, I don't know if you'd like to hear.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure, that's the only reason
yeah, whether to do
How
it
did you-
proactively is another question. I mean,
I do have a question about, I think we have to look through the bylaws, because I just want to make sure that you're able to present.
she is, I
The
don't think we
resolution
have a
voted
clause
against.
that, I don't think we have a clause that, some boards do, I
Yeah.
don't think we.
I voted for.
Oh,
Yeah, is he gonna be presenting?
I believe so, if not, we can like
Okay.
go to the videotape.
All right, we'll deal with that
It
after
says like
this.
in issues of major controversy or something.
well, it's just controversial.
Right, so again, we've never defined what that is.
Yeah,
It's
I don't know,
controversial.
I would argue I did not.
This
It's
was
a
controversial
controversial.
landmark.
It's controversial 9-3, I don't know if that's.
Really heated or just kind of like.
Right.
Read it.
Right. Anyway, I don't wanna get bogged down in this,
It's not
but,
land use.
but it has come up more and more, so I do think
More
having an aligned view of what presenters are supposed to say in those moments is helpful, so
Yeah.
thank you.
So I think, a general understanding of the reasons why people voted against is helpful, but I don't think you are required to go into point by point and I think it is probably best that you don't single those people out, because their names are also in the packet, so people can, if they want to speak, they're able to.
I generally heard this, and if those who voted against this want to speak, they're welcome to.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
Okay, the 5. Yeah,
Our fifth and final application came on behalf of Christie's Auction House at 1230. Avenue of the Americas, Rockefeller Center is the individual landmark. Christie's is simply renovating their space. They're making 3 main changes to their landmark exterior. They're renovating the entrance and canopy over the entrance, renovating the rotundas on either side of said entrance, and adding LED screens inside the rotunda. The renovations to the exterior actually, in our view, better match the historic Rockefeller Center aesthetic than what is there currently. And the LED screens are not obtrusive in our view and are also reversible if needed. So we had a unanimous 12-0. So that. Cool.
questions? Comments? Okay, great, thank you, Karen. All right, moving on to land use. Nancy. For joining us.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so we had one reso application and one lecture. So our reso is about the Roundabout Theater, which is an application for a zoning text amendment and special permit to facilitate the rehabilitation of Studio 54, the theater, at 254 West 54th Street. Now, some of you may know this as a nightclub, but it's always been a theater, and it was a nightclub that was a theater, but it was only for a year and a half. It's actually a theater. So this application request would allow development rights generated through qualifying theater rehabilitation work to be transferred to other sites within the theater subdistrict to help fund the accessibility, building systems, and other improvements to the theater. The application was submitted by the nonprofit Roundabout Theater, who is the owner and operator of the historic Studio 54 Theater. This transfer of development rights would help fund approximately $105 million in theater rehabilitation and preservation. And as I said, the improvements include ADA accessibility, code-compliant life safety upgrades, new building systems, and the restoration of the historic theater space. This was a unanimous vote to recommend approval.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? Thank you, Nancy.
Okay.
Do you want to go over the presentation?
Excuse me, what?
Do you want to go over the presentation?
Yes, I do. So we
Okay.
also heard a presentation from an organization called Dark Sky New York about the effects of artificial light at night, ALAN, which I'm calling, again, Times Square in the sky, Times Square everywhere. And this is about Midtown becoming a 24-hour mixed-use neighborhood where excessive nighttime lighting is no longer just a commercial issue, but it also affects residents, parks, and public space. So the presentation discussed specific research linking excessive nighttime lighting to glare and sleep disruption, reduced comfort in parks and plazas, impacts on migratory birds along the Atlantic Flyway, and effects of pollinators and urban ecology. We also learned that recognized lighting standards already exist, including the IES bug rating system and the WELL building standard, but they are not generally applied to large digital building signage. The reason we're spending so much time on this is we will be having an application coming before us for a permit to allow a 60-foot digital sign in Herald Square right across from the park. So we're trying to get up to speed so we're prepared to actually review that application. Just wanted to bring to our attention that's a recent example of the Port Authorities, their recognition of the detrimental effects of ALAN in their plan to turn off the newly installed LED lighting on the George Washington Bridge during peak migration periods to help protect migrating birds. This shows that artificial lighting at night and environmental stewardship can successfully coexist. So as complaints from residents of our community board continue regarding highly illuminated digital facades outside the Times Square Theater District, our LUHZ and Parks and Public Spaces Committee will continue to educate ourselves on the issue, hear from experts, and better understand where there are opportunities to improve how these impacts are addressed. But at this point, this is an educational and fact-finding effort. No policy recommendations have been made yet by either committee.
Great, thank you, Nancy. Okay, moving on to transportation, I guess, Samir, if you wouldn't mind.
Happy to. Can you pass me the solution? Not really what we voted on. Oh, was this the 6th Avenue?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Yes, that one I can definitely represent well. Okay, so we had the DOT come to talk to us at the Transportation Committee because they want to make some changes on 6th Avenue. They've already made similar changes between 34th and 14th Street and maybe even further south. And this proposal is to extend those changes north from 35th to 59th. Those changes include increasing the width of the bike lane, which they're doing by just removing a buffer. So they're not actually changing the street allocation for that specifically, but they also want to take 2 lanes and make them into bus lanes. And I think we would have 2 moving lanes for private vehicles, and then maybe 1 or 2 parking lanes on either side. I forget. They're also going to remove a few bus stops that are not adequately spaced out. Basically, when you have bus stops that are too close to each other, it's inefficient. So they're removing 4 lower ridership bus stops, and then adding some bike corrals. We heard a bunch of feedback from the public and members of the committee, which is outlined in the resolution. I won't read it all. But overall, we felt like this was an important change, especially because they've already done it between 14th and 35th, and they clearly want to do it further north. The only other thing I would add is that whenever we've had presentations from the Future of Fifth commission, committee, whatever they're called, they've punted on the bike lane on Fifth Avenue by saying like, oh, well, maybe they'll do a bi-directional bike lane on Sixth Avenue. So I asked about that in the meeting. They said this plan wouldn't preclude that. But to me, if they're gonna do this change, it seems unlikely that they would revisit it so soon to change it from a extra wide bike lane to, I don't know what they would do, but somehow they would do bi-directional. So we also added our same resolve clause from last time, basically saying that we again support a bike lane on Fifth Avenue, just, squeaky wheel gets the grease, so keep saying it.
Thank you. Questions? Comments?
Charles.
Charles has.
Yeah.
I has a question.
Yeah,
See you.
Charles, I see your hand. Is that for this resolution?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a quick comment. I was there at that meeting. The MTA spokesperson actually said the bus stop reduction was down to low ridership at those stops, nothing to do with spacing. I just wanted to put that out there just as a correction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to parks.
So we had one item, that was a voting item. It was the Madison Square Park, annual programming, which is sort of a summer. We've been trying to get onto a regular schedule with their annual programming. Most of it is standard, just as a reminder for everyone, they're allowed 4 marketing events, 4 fundraising events, and 1 additional event that is meant to be similar in style to what was once the Big Apple Barbecue in its refined and modified state. Most of it was the same type of things that goes through some of their regular traditional free programming, which is what all of the fundraising events then go to provide. They do know that they're going to be doing Taste of Asia again. That is the real fundraising event that is currently scheduled. And that they're going to share some of their own survey results with us as far as traffic goes. Everything else is pretty standard to what they've done previously as far as bench days with the executive director, walks, music with kids, like it's the standard stuff which you can kind of go through. But the primary thing is sharing those survey responses and then also to continue to come and present stuff. I think many of us have already talked about what will or won't come to us, and that's one of the things that is sort of up for discussion. But this annual programming passed 12-0-0.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Comments? Sorry, do you have a question? No, okay, comments? Okay, thank you. All right, that's it for committee reports. Any comments or questions on the full board agenda? Oh, and then, sorry for jumping over this, just quickly, CSQL, do you want to give a report on? I know you had a presentation from sanitation.
I don't think we need to report on that.
Okay.
Is your question about the?
Yeah.
Okay, I think you're okay if I just.
Yeah, go ahead. I was actually just going to tell everybody that I'm stepping down as chair and Melissa is now going to be the new chair of CSQL. So those of you who didn't know that, I wanted to make sure that I said that and said thank you to everyone. And I'm not leaving the board. I'm going to stay on. And yeah, thank you. I'm going to miss you guys. I'm probably still going to come on exec meetings because I won't know what to do when I don't know what's going on. But thank you so much. And you're all amazing. And I've been so lucky to do this work with all of you. So thank you.
Definitely apologies for jumping the gun on that, but we really appreciate the work that you've done over the past year plus on CSQL and the rest of the board as well. And we're looking forward and happy to hear that you're staying on. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think
to your other thing.
Yeah, I think we should provide an update on the horse carriage letter if that's not good.
Right, yes. Okay. Go for it.
Oh, so we are just reiterating our stance around supporting the horse carriage law, given the recent tragedies in Central Park. So we put together a letter and we'll be sending that on to electeds again, just reiterating again our support for it. So I think we should make an update at full board. So I don't know what the status of that is.
Yeah, have we set that?
Sent
That
it
letter
today.
got
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
wonderful.
So then we're just saying we sent the letter to our electeds
Yeah.
in
Thanks for
support
providing.
of the law, and we'll say what the law is and maybe say what the tragedies were, because some people may not know.
Yeah, and the name changed, so the law changed to, the law name changed to the young man's name, so
Right,
that
right,
should
right.
just be noted, yeah.
Should we update that, Rezo?
Yeah,
Like
we're,
is-
Marisa had already started, fixing, that to the electeds that are different that we're sending it to, this time, since it's, the time change and the electives had changed, and then just the name of the, of writer's law has changed. So we were just gonna be changing that. I don't think we've sent it yet, so. Is
So we-
Marisa there?
She said it's a
Yeah, it just went out
update
today.
in the sense of to make it apply to the correct law and to send it to the right electeds. Did you mean something else?
No, nope, not at
No,
all.
I'm asking, sorry.
I mean, just maybe
Yeah.
to provide some,
We provide context at the upfront
You-
as
okay,
well
great.
of why we're sending.
Oh, the additional.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Oh, I
great.
apologize. Okay,
Great.
you can
That's
say
fine.
Melissa, go ahead.
Any other questions or comments? Samir?
And I think we upload those letters to the website, right? To the Airtable.
Yes.
Yeah, so
and I'll
people
do
can-
that. I was just waiting for the budget to pass before I sent it, so
Right.
that somebody could actually.
Yeah.
So that's the delay.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay, anything else for the? Okay, so let's switch over to the bylaws amendment. I think there's, I don't know if there's printouts, but you all got an email copy of it.
Does anyone need a printout?
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Oh, then it's fine. I got it, I got my computer and I remember it.
Just a reminder for everyone, so we
Here you go.
updated our bylaws last year to, I think, modify the way that bylaw amendments happened and also streamline it a little bit. So the way this works is that when a bylaw is introduced, we have one meeting where there is no action on it. And then the following meeting after that, there would be a vote on it by the full board. The way that they work, because of that notice period, they cannot be amended after being introduced unless we start the clock over again, because it's a different proposition if you're starting to amend it. And so following that, we received a proposal from David earlier this week, and so I wanted to discuss it here so that everyone can have an opportunity to kind of review and provide comment, because once it's issued, it can't be changed until, so if it were issued before our meeting next Thursday, we would vote on it in our September full board meeting.
Yep.
So with that, take it away.
sure. So, I sat with Nancy for a coffee a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that she mentioned to me was how she wanted folks to really participate in the committee process, and how that she thought that it was difficult to go against the committee's recommendation in full board. And Nancy, you've been on the board for quite a number of years. You've seen kind of how these things play out in committees. I think that the work that we've done over the past couple of years in allowing other input in the committees and making this a more inclusive board, this is sort of a natural evolution of that. You know, if I'm a board member, I don't see why I should be able to participate in the committee where the decisions are made if I'm willing to put the time and the energy and the effort into understanding the issue and helping resolve and come to a consensus. If the folks on this board want the work to be done at the committee level, then this is a very reasonable proposal to do that. CB7 and CB8 provide for that in Manhattan. There's others in Brooklyn as well. I proposed some language here to preserve the committee process and how we handle committees. And this is something above and beyond. If you want to participate and put the time and the energy and effort into it, then you should be able to have a fair seat at the table. And so I hope folks get a chance to read this. I'm likely gonna have some co-sponsors to this. The folks that I've previewed this with are very supportive of this. And so this is not, I think, the final copy that will be proposed before the full board meeting. But I'd like to hear folks' thoughts on this and see if there's ways to make this proposal better. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm assuming everyone has had the opportunity to review this, so unless other questions to the, I guess the amendment or the
So,
text.
I have a question. Sorry.
Starting with Melissa.
So I have two questions, which are mostly clarification questions. I'm supportive of this. One is, does this apply to exec or does exec operate differently? And I think we should probably clarify if that is the case. I'm just not sure what qualifies under the definition of committee. And then the second question is, I think the language is really clear around meetings at which the matter is considered, like that's pretty clear what that means. But do we want to provide specific guidance when introducing that, of what that like definitionally means? So for example, if an issue is being covered over 2 meetings and someone is not able to make the first meeting, but they do the work of watching the meeting video back, and are able to engage in the second meeting, are they then eligible to vote? Or do they have to be there in person? So just specific kind of considerations like that.
We're still in questions.
Yeah, I'm just not, now that I'm asking questions, I'm not sure who's answering these questions, quite honestly.
Well,
These are just thoughts.
I was gonna, let me just give a broad comment as someone who served on our bylaws task force. One thing that we learned, take it or leave it, is that the bylaws can't and shouldn't answer every procedural question that comes up. That it becomes too detailed and constrained. This is more to the second thing that you said. I think the question of whether exec counts or not is a very good one. So we could make those specifications in the bylaws, or we can decide that there's guidance and recommendations for chairs, Brad. So I hear what you're saying. Part of me thinks that a bylaw amendment, maybe a bylaw shouldn't get into that level of detail, but
Yeah,
yeah.
so I would be in agreement that I don't think the language itself should change, but I think.
It's
I guess the
something we
question
should
is more
discuss.
like, do we want to get ahead of those types
Yeah,
of
agreed.
questions?
Yeah.
Agreed.
With guidance.
Really good. I think the question about exec maybe should be represented. If exec were to be excluded from this, that should be represented in the amendment. I don't know if that's your position, but.
I have no position. To be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
That is a true question.
I had a separate question.
Go for it.
David, you said this will not be the final version. Does that mean you think this language might change?
No. I think that the only language I would see change is if there's something that comes as a result of
Oh,
this meeting.
discussion. Okay,
Other
Right.
than the fact that I would like to bring this to the board with co-sponsors
Understood.
that are
understood,
supportive of this.
understood. Okay.
Those are the only 2 changes that I would consider.
Okay, that's a good question.
So,
Thank you, Brett. I think Melissa and Yoram just raised issues that I've been concerned about and thinking about this and why I came tonight, because I'm really interested to hear what you as chair and all the members of exec, and particularly the chairs of the committees, feel about how this affects the work that you're doing now and that you're doing in the future. I'm wondering how this affects the way in which you're going to make committee appointments and the way that you're going to run your committees. So really interested to hear the thoughts that each and every one of you guys on exec, the full board officers, as well as the committee chairs and vice chairs, think about this, whatever questions that may be raised in their mind in really changing this process. I think it's essential. I think what David's proposing is a very good faith effort to get more people involved in the issues in which they're most interested in, and in which they might have, particular expertise and a desire to advocate. But I think that it really, it affects the entire structure of the board. And thankfully, David included some of the language that 7 and 8 have used, and maybe want to hear from some of those folks and the way they've been affected in making these kinds of changes. So I really just came to hear from you guys tonight.
Okay, thank you. Let's stay, I just want to make sure we stay in questions and resolve any of those. Nancy, you have a question or a comment? Comment. Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
Well, first of all, I'm completely flabbergasted at the comments David made about a discussion we had, because that's not at all what I meant. So I'm not supportive of this initiative, and I have actually 4 thoughts that I'd like to share about what I think are the negative effects of this. Is now the time, or should I wait?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think first of all, it weakens the collaborative deliberation that is fundamental in the purpose of standing committees. Secondly, committee recommendations should reflect the considered judgment of committed committee members, not an ever-changing group of attendees. Committee membership is an ongoing commitment that builds expertise, continuity, and institutional knowledge over time. And finally, I think it's important to remember every board member already has an equal vote at the full board where the board's final decisions are made. So why should we complicate the committee process in this way? It makes no sense to me, and I think it destroys the strength of our committee process.
Thank you, Nancy. Smart.
On the exec part, I think we should make it explicit that it does not apply to exec. I
Yeah.
think that that should stay for people who are officers and chairs and vice chairs. And then generally, I'm supportive. When I joined the board, you people were not allowed to have more than 2 minutes at committee meetings and just participate as a member of the public. So we've already moved in that direction of getting more people to be more involved with the committee meetings. And so I think this will help that go further. And, I think it's important that, if I'm being honest, I think that our full board meetings can go a bit long. And I think the more we can get stuff out of full board and into the committee where they can come up with a resolution that will represent the full, what they expect the full board to say, which I think it will be more likely when you have more people going to those meetings, the better off we'll be, especially the full board meetings.
Anyone? Here.
Like Melissa, some thoughts to share. So if everybody can already cherry pick, so to speak, and a little loud. If everyone's already has the ability to attend, I'm just wondering if everyone already has the ability to attend committee meetings to which they don't belong, read the material, watch the tape, again, attend. Kind of just wondering why they would form or how that would make it more informed. If those outlets already exist. So you get a vote at full board. You don't get a vote at committee. But you can participate in the conversation, help shape it. So I'm just wondering that, like maybe similar along the lines of Nancy, but there wasn't. Can't call.
But yeah, no, I appreciate that. And one of the things that Nancy was nice enough, she said, come as a public member. And I think there are limitations as a public member. I mean, we're all here to do better for the city, to help make this place a better place. And we've gone through this process to be on the community board. I just don't understand why we wouldn't have a full opportunity to propose resolutions, to vote on issues, to participate as a member of the board on these issues that are supposed to be kind of figured out and recommended with the detail in minutes, right? So I totally understand that it's very informative. You can go there and you can participate, but you still don't have the same rights. And it just strikes me as being not reasonable to not be able to have those same rights. If we want to achieve a consensus in the committee, full board is not where that should happen. And there's tremendous amount of opportunity to work on the issues in the committee, much more so than there is in full board.
This may be also a partial response to your question, your thought. There's a paragraph in here on the second page that talks about what things were like a few years ago. And when I first started on this board, you couldn't attend other meetings in any meaningful way because you were limited to 2 minutes of comment at any other meeting. That changed. And I thought that was a fantastic change because, I'm on land use, for example, and at our last session, there's a new building going up in Midtown. A number of folks who live nearby were able to come in. They're on our board. They could share their perspective. I thought that was useful. And it was good to hear their participation at the board. It made it richer. And I think most people agree that our meetings have been richer because other folks can come in when a particular topic is being discussed where there's some expertise. On the question of whether that plus a full board vote might be enough, I support this because of what I think I've seen happen as a dynamic at many full board meetings where we say we want a norm where we generally defer to the committee work. And I think that's a good norm because the committee put the time in and had the lengthy discussion about it. And folks often don't have time, understandably, to watch all the committee meetings. And so what they think of as the committee work is the yes or no that comes out of that. And so the vote from the committee ends up being really important to reflect how did the committee think about it. And so if you let someone participate, but you don't give them a vote, I think it's sort of taking away from the overall message that the full board relies on. And I think it improves the information that the full board has about how the committee thought about something if you have both the participation of anyone who has an interest plus their vote on record.
Thank you. Libby.
I might come back. Well, can I say, I've got two things, but they're sort of, one's a thought and one is a little bit of a question thought. So my understanding is that it's like, it's between. So CB8, my understanding is that it's committee of the whole, and that's why they all meet remotely. And so they have many, many, many committees, and that the only meeting they have to be at in person for quorum purposes is their main full board meeting. I just wanted to put that out there as who's participating in what at their committees, and that is a little bit of a different type of reason. I'm not saying that I'm against this or for this either way, but just that's my understanding of how that's a little bit different. So that everyone is on everything because technically they are, and then they never show up except for full board. And then this sounds probably like the most school teacher annoying thing is that just if people are gonna come to meetings and participate, which many people have, and it has really added to the discussion. It would be nice also to make sure that people, if they're gonna participate, that they're also gonna participate in doing the preparation work and maybe in preparing some of the resolutions that like then come out of it, if they're gonna contribute in a major way, that it's like part of that process, that doesn't end up adding more workload. But also like if someone has expertise to contribute, that like it would be nice to have them like offer it. In like a substantive way too, which is more of like an ask as far as like a norm of like politeness or help goes.
Yeah, I will say,
Which has been nice.
after receiving this, I had a conversation with Valerie Mason, the chair of CB8. And I know Yaron had a conversation or text exchange with Alex Bell, the chair of CB7. So for CB8, basically what you're saying is correct. I don't know that their model necessarily matches with what we do because they do not attend any of their committee meetings in person. They are all virtual in a way that I don't understand fully how it complies with open meetings law, but that's not my problem to deal with. But they do essentially rehash everything at full board. And my understanding from Valerie, she said to me, 50% of our resolutions from committees get overturned at full board, meaning an approval out of a committee turns into denial at full board. And that a 3.5-hour meeting is an efficient one for them in the way that they do their process. So no judgment to our CBA colleagues, but I don't think that's the model that we are striving towards. It sounds like we're moving more towards something closer to what CB7 is. I can characterize it, Your Honor, unless you want to.
No, I mean, that's related to my comment. May I make my?
Go for it.
Sure. So I think this is really interesting and I'm generally supportive of it. I take my role as first vice chair to think first and foremost about, the functioning of the board and the excitement and engagement people have to be here. The worst thing that can happen for our board is for people to not want to be here and therefore stop coming. I think this would help with that. I think it would make people more engaged with the subject matter. It would help, anything that gets people more excited to be a board member is I think a plus. I think related to CB7, I think that, and related to some of the concerns Nancy suggested, I think that there are ways to institute this amendment, but still signal to those who may be interested in it what the committee thought versus what the members who showed up thought. So what CB7 does is they report those vote totals separately. So they say the committee voted this way and the additional members who showed up voted this way. So to address some of Nancy's concerns, that could be something we do to, if people find that distinction meaningful, we could certainly report votes that way. The other concern I have, again, wearing my sort of first vice chair hat, is I wouldn't want this to have a detrimental effect on attendance. So at the committees you're assigned to. So would we create a situation in which people are like, great, don't have to go to landmarks anymore. I'm just gonna go to this meeting because I'd rather engage with this subject matter. So you're by no means required to take the suggestion, but the language in here that says this applies for members in good attendance standing, you could leave it at that, would be something I would love to see in here to give us the ability to monitor from an attendance perspective, whether this would need to be clawed back because people stop going to the committees they're assigned to. What? And lastly, I would also be in favor of what Samir suggested and Melissa brought up, which is excluding the executive committee from this.
Great, thank you, Ron. Joel.
Yeah, I agree with Anchor. I think we have made some good democratic process in that. Down that way. I'm very pleased about that. I don't have any particular insight in how committees are assigned to members or how chairs are chosen. But having served on the nominations and elections committees, I have pretty good sense that we are voting for our officers, because that, to a large extent, is their major responsibility. And it becomes for them representative what their priorities are. You, Brad, all of you here, as serving as officers in leading this board. So that remains something I really want to hear your opinion. How does this affect the work that you're doing in appointing members, new members to committees, perhaps changing the committee membership, the chairs, the vice chairs, and so forth? I think this could be a very good proposal, but it may not. I haven't really thought through, and I don't know because I don't have all the evidence or an understanding of all the processes that you guys are involved with to know how positively and negatively this can affect the nature of our work.
Thank you. Nancy.
Okay, so I first of all, I'm sorry, I have a question. How will we count quorum? What if the committee members that are assigned to the committee don't show up and we have several non-committee members show up? Are they counted as quorum? How is that going to work? That's my first question. And my second point is a comment. My concern is that I believe this politicizes the committee process in a way that will be a negative impact on the work that we're already doing. And I think we need to take that into consideration and focus on how we can best collaborate and work together without creating a very politicized situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And two, I think we'll have to consider, like Yaron said, I don't think we should need to address that as part of this process about with the way that works, but My
Quorum
understanding
stays
of
the
quorum
same.
is that quorum would not change based on this because it's based on the committee assignment. So you'd still be required to have a quorum of members who are assigned to that committee in order for that committee to function. So additional members attending do not satisfy that requirement. Tiffany.
Well, thank you, because a couple of questions that I had to Nancy just asked. I do think the other thing that I don't know where or what point we'd want to put this in there if we do pass this, but I would just say that out of respect for the chair and vice chair of their meeting and to appropriately prepare for those meetings, that if a member of the board that is not on that committee plans to attend and wants to weigh in or has some component that they'd like to bring to the table, that they just nicely email our fellow chair and vice chair of that board. That way the meeting can run smoother and there's not blindsiding and it can just be cohesive.
Thank you, Tiffany. Melissa.
I think so I'm supportive of this. I think the only other point I'll add is that I think that this will help incentivize building some of that institutional knowledge. And then just also voicing support for, this will help also build engagement. Having votes be a reflection of committee perspective within full board, I think is a perspective that I also share. So I think also supportive of this for that reason and potentially also, breaking out where those votes are landing for committee members versus those who are attending. And then I'm also supportive of including that attendance language that Ron proposed in the update as well.
Thank you. Kevin. Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. I guess the issue that predominantly comes to my mind is, initially I thought that your Ron's comment or suggestion to kind of announce the votes separately would fix everything. But when I think about landmarks, at least, when we're going through the business session, there's at least an effort to sort of corral the sentiment of what people are thinking in terms of trying to get to consensus on a resolution and say, kind of going around the table and saying, well, do you feel like this is a approve or this is a deny unless or what have you? And if you suddenly have a political or a hot button issue that happens to come up in your committee, and so you have 5 non-committee members suddenly appear, you might skew that process where you're trying to develop consensus in terms of just getting a resolution to be, moved and seconded. That might become more difficult because I don't know if there's a way to limit business session comments to just members of the committee, for instance. Anyway, that's my initial thought. And obviously I think this predominantly affects land use, where the issues are a little bit more hot button-y. There's no one banging down the door to get into the landmarks meetings. They're welcome to join if they want.
Yes,
But
Kevin, I'm sorry I used this committee example.
the truth hurts, you're on. It's fine. I can that's my only comment. Thank you.
You're on. I'm sorry, and then Ocker.
I think it's interesting what Kevin's saying. I would use the example that I think Ocker gave, which is recently at land use, we had 2 members of the board come. I think Andrea, you were one of them.
Yeah.
And felt very strongly about an issue that land use was considering. And I think I think they did sway the board. I mean, I'd sway the committee. And I think ultimately to have and so I think the committee did get pushed by having our colleagues in the room in in a good way. And I think ultimately to have denied them a vote on this issue they felt so passionately about, I think actually made it less strong. It would have been great to have their votes alongside what the committee had decided, which I think, I can't speak for you, Andrea, but maybe would have voted for at committee. So maybe Kevin, all I'm saying is maybe there's examples where it's good pushing and maybe this helps, like that example, you know, and with their votes, it would have been stronger coming out of the committee. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think that's an interesting example to consider.
Some minor just sort of wordsmithing. I agree with the point about the attendance and wanting to limit the right to vote to those who are in good standing. Because the current language already gives all board members the right to attend and participate, and I don't think we want to take that away or reduce that. Maybe the language could say, maybe the proposed language could say, all board members shall have a right to attend, participate in deliberations, and with respect to those board members in good standing, vote at any meeting. And then of any standing committee of the board, I think I would also accept exec and take that out of there, because the logic of the argument is that people are bringing expertise in planning, transportation, housing, finance, but this is a little bit more administrative in general. So I think no need to add someone to that one. And then on the politicizing point, I think, and I like the way you put it. I think it actually maybe makes things a little less politicized at our full board meetings, because you have the full array of voices heard at committee, and you can see the votes. I am totally fine with reporting committee votes and then the additional votes on a separate line. That's fine.
Thank you. Nancy.
Okay, so my committee was brought up, land use. And my concern is, as a chair for me, in advance of our meetings, I send out a very detailed email explaining and describing all of the issues we are going to be reviewing, so that when committee members come to the meeting, they have already done research and are ready to discuss the application. And so there's advance opportunity. Do I now send that out to the entire board? Question number one. Second question is, I have a very specific orientation manual that I also give to all the members of my committee. Does that now go out to the entire board? And then the third thing is, my committee has a specific land use committee folder on our website. Does now everyone go into that folder and see all the information? How is that managed? And it becomes a bit of a management nightmare for any chair. So that it's administrative questions, I know, but those are my concerns as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Nancy.
Just Nancy and Marissa, you can clarify. I think already the entire board has access to all of the committee folders.
No.
Oh, okay.
Committee members for
Just
that
in-
committee
okay, got it.
should have access
I
to
thought
that
the
committee
entire-
And
folder.
then re-upping it also, you have to consistently remind people that they do in fact have access, and then consistently share the link.
Yeah,
Members, so I was wrong. I'm sorry, Nancy, I was wrong.
So yeah,
Big
You have a
that.
question.
sure. To that point, I think maybe it's just a revisiting for at least the second 2 points Nancy raised, maybe it's just a revisiting of our build management policy in terms of maybe all of our trainings live in a folder that everyone can access, and all of the committee information lives in a folder that anyone can access, because this is, shared knowledge and anyone can forward it at any point if they wanted to. To the first one, wait, now I forgot what the point was. Is that right?
The pre-materials.
The pre-materials, I think maybe that dovetails into Tiffany's point. I don't know if we need to codify this in the language, but if people give notice that they plan to attend the meeting, and presumably they're attending because they're interested, so they know ahead of time this is not a spur of the moment thing, then they could receive that material as part of that. And I don't know if there's a way we want to make this like the notice contingent to be able to vote, so that we have that. I don't know, maybe that just makes this overly complicated, but that is just as a, I know we're not trying to solve all the administrative with the language, but that's just my kind of initial reaction to that. Samir.
Yeah, I don't think we should change the language to deal with that.
But
I
it's
think
an
we should,
important consideration.
yeah, and I think when you give your update, or whenever we send out these emails, we should say, if you're interested, please let them know some number of hours in advance. I think that's fine. I just don't, again, think it's good to put all of it into the
All
letter.
every else. Yeah, I think that's fair.
No. Yeah.
So you're saying I sent my email out to the entire board? I thought we weren't doing that because that
doesn't-
violates the open meetings law.
No, what I'm saying, Nancy, is you send your email like normal, and Seth.
Who's on the
Seth-
committee.
Who's on the committee, I'm trying to find. Samir emails you and says, I want to attend your next meeting, and you say, great, here are the materials that the other members got.
Right.
So that it's,
Potentially.
yeah, potentially,
Right.
as like as a way to deal with both of those things that you and Tiffany raised, David.
I guess, this seems like a very easy problem to solve, and just that all folks get all the materials, and it's an extra 4 emails. Right? How many committees do we have?
Six.
And they're on-
You're on 2, so it's an extra 4 emails, and like, you know, I wanna know what's going on in the other committees. I wanna see the materials. Why, I don't think that this seems like a kind of a difficult hurdle to jump over. I don't think people are gonna be upset about getting 4 more emails in their email box every month.
But they already don't read.
What?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I just don't think we have to solve it.
It's not a hard, that's not a hard problem.
Actually agree with what you said about the shared knowledge. I think in the survey that was shared like a month ago, I actually mentioned that. I don't know if it's anonymous or whatever, but
It is anonymous.
Technically
So you just, yeah.
now you know who.
Some people have unique communities, but yeah.
Yeah, I actually mentioned that, and I think it will be beneficial for everyone to, if they want to know more about what other committees work, and especially I think for land use, it will be also good for someone, say like, the person wants to be on like your land use committee at one point. It's good to have an opportunity to do some like homework and research, beforehand. I think it'll be nice. And logistically speaking, I think if we have a share folder for every chair to upload their materials like they usually upload for their committee meeting, just like a centralized location, I think it will be, if say like I just wanna like drop by tomorrow's, other committee's meeting, I could just like go to that folder and myself and look at it. I don't think, sometimes it necessarily of the time one. It's more about like how proactive. So.
Joel?
Thank you, Beth. I'm still looking for clarity on how this affects the responsibilities and the prerogatives of the leadership in terms of committee assignments and appointments for chairs and vice chairs. To some extent, this proposal is almost sort of opening wide open. We're now appointing to the committees that want to be on, and maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. So really, I think there's a lot of discussion that you guys need to have about how you're going to continue to do your work, and whether or not there are things that really should be really under your purview because you're elected officers, or not. And I'm much more interested in consensus based democracy than anything else. But we do more of a representative style, and I don't know how we're changing that and what results we may see.
Sure. So I guess I'll take this time. I appreciate hearing from you, and so I didn't want to kind of weigh in preemptively with my own thoughts, which is, I guess I'll start with this looking actually back at the survey because it's going to become relevant to an item that will bring up a new business. But looking back at that, I think some of the takeaways that I was pleased to see related to the full board was, I think there was a general satisfaction with committee assignments. I think that was a positive item in there. And then I think the other thing that stood out to me as it relates to this is it's about 50% of people who at least self-report that they attend meetings that they are not part of. So I think
Or
this is
watch. It was attend or watch.
Attend or watch, okay.
Yeah.
That they're not.
50% attend.
Well, that's why it's self-reported.
Right.
So I think what the portion of this proposal that I am excited about is similar. I'm actually making a lot of similar points that you're on because we've had conversations about this, but the portion that I am excited about is that this gives people who are interested in a topic another place to engage at the board with. And so I think that that is valuable. But I also think that it needs to come with some guardrails to avoid chaos at committee committee level, so that there is an expectation in terms of the way that this is administered, both by the chairs who are responsible for managing their own committee, and also new members who are coming in sort of at an at a not a regular timing. And then also just in terms of the overall function of the board. And so both of those, I think, were addressed by the comments relating to a separate tally. I think that that is beneficial because it allows sort of these things to be separated out and kept a little bit more clear so that you're able to review that. One of the things I would like to kind of have a discussion on related to that, if we're going back to the CB7 model, the determining whether or not a resolution passes is only determined by the committee vote. So I think for me, in order to avoid potential where people who are a smaller group of who are very passionate about an issue attend a meeting and change the vote from what it would have been otherwise, that to me, I think we have to have that conversation here. So if we are in agreement that that is the method similar to CB7, how we're planning on doing this. And then the other one which was raised, which I don't think is necessarily contemplated in here, but I think somebody mentioned making motions, whether or not we're saying that members who attend, who are not members of that committee, are able to make motions is something that we should probably come to a consensus on if we're reviewing this. And then the last thing is attendance. I think it is important that the good standing of attendance language be in there because I do think it's important that this be something that is an extra beyond and not just everyone assigning themselves their own committees. And so with all those points in front of me, to your question, Zool, about how this would make me think about assigning committees going forward, I think in terms of my practice, it would probably not change a ton based upon this. But I do think that it would give me potentially additional information because I can see people who maybe are incentivized this and maybe not by our current policy to attend meetings to understand they are actively interested in this subject matter and they have demonstrated that by attending these meetings, engaging with the matter and ultimately voting. So with those potential guardrails in effect, I would be supportive of this proposal. I saw two hands go up while I was speaking, so I'm gonna go to Ankur and then Samir.
Sure. So, to respond to those guardrails, I'm generally supportive of them. The only one that I had a concern with and maybe would urge us not to adopt is having approval by just the permanent members of the committee rather than the folks who stay. I think the thing that's important to convey is these people care. Some other people came in because they have a lot of interest or knowledge about the particular topic. They're going to vote there. And then wherever the majority of the vote lands, it should be communicated to people, and that's an approval or a deny. I guess on one level doesn't matter that much because the only things that are really approved or denied is what's made by the full board. So you could also be silent as to what the board is, and people can count votes. It's right there on a piece of paper in front of them. So I don't think that needs to be too much of a gating issue. But the other suggestions I think are reasonable. And I think in terms of how it might affect committee appointments in the future, just to be clear, the current process is the chair. And it's not the executive officer, so it's not the elected officers, it's the chair decides. And I like your point about it's a nice way to see who cares about things. And that's good.
Yeah, I think just going back to what we said before, I think we should keep the language as clean as possible. If CB7 is able to have that rule in place with this language, I think that we can also have that rule in place with the proposed language. I don't think we need to write that into our bylaws.
Yeah, and sorry, just to be clear, I wasn't proposing that. I just didn't want to have this go through without that discussion happening. Yeah.
If it's helpful, and I have to admit, I didn't spend that much time on it. I went through CB7 votes, the ones that I could find. And I couldn't find an example where a meaningful number of non-committee members showed up and that their numbers would have made a difference in the vote. So that's not to say it wouldn't happen here, but it's worth considering. It's worth considering.
Yeah, I guess to that point, the example I give, everyone likes to talk about bikes. So I think our board has moved in a generally more pro bike lane position, but that wasn't always the case. And so there could have been a situation where all of our members who were anti-bike attended every transportation meeting and say, I'm not going to vote for this resolution unless this language is in there. And that would sway it if we didn't have the way that sort of counting went through. It's just
Yeah.
a hypothetical I made up in my head, but something that I'm thinking about, I'm trying to game out the eventualities of how this could play out, not just next week, but 2 years, 5,
Mhm.
10 years from now. David.
But isn't that sort of good though? Isn't that shouldn't those battles be made in the committee level where there's detail and there's conversation and there's consensus being made rather than have that argument or discussion at a full board meeting? I just, I understand the concerns. I understand folks trying to stack a committee on a single issue. I think that that'll be very apparent from the suggestion that you made where we divide the votes out. And listen, that's great. That's great if we get a bunch of folks who are really, really excited about an issue that come to a committee and try to come to some sort of conclusion there. And that is a controversial conclusion that goes to a full board. We're here to participate in this political process, and that's a good conclusion. So I think that those are good things. And I also think that if you remove kind of the ability for those votes to matter in the committee, what was the point? Who made the point where there were two folks? Oh, you made the point there were two folks in land use, and that why shouldn't they have a vote? Why shouldn't they be part of that decision? They're appointed board members of this community. They're here to work on these issues. Why shouldn't they? This is a very reasonable, rational proposal that allows for a better democratic process.
I definitely take your point as far as I do think splitting out the votes is good, but I think this comes to some of the thoughts about consensus that I think many of us subscribe to the idea that if we vote a little bit more or reach a type of consensus, we tend to be more effective as a board with making our voice heard. In my experience, when people have attended our meetings, even without a vote, it's been able to sort of influence the conversation and shape it. I think that it probably would be up to, sort of how each chair wants to manage the meeting about how much, say the votes are split out and it's does it count towards whether or not it passes a committee? I do still think that we do have that norm of consensus in a lot of ways that just the presence or the overrunning of a meeting might still, we still do tend that way as a board. So I think that splitting it out wouldn't necessarily harm the ability of people attending who aren't members of that committee to influence the votes of the members of the committee. Also, just in support of that, I think it sounds.
Karen.
Yeah, no, I agree with all your guardrails. I echo Libby as well. I echo Kevin. We all want heightened collaboration, heightened democratic process. There's a medium for that currently. If you're saying 50% self-report that they attended
Or watch.
watched, I mean, that's kind of your litmus test right there.
49% watch
49%
and 1% attended.
1% attended.
And have attended in more than one occasion, and it's also helped the conversation. Sorry to interrupt, but it's been much more lively.
Yeah, no, attendance would be encouraged, and I think to your point, would impact the conversation and could lead to a more constructive, more collaborative conversation. But I'm just wondering if folks, it seems like a lot we've moved and we can continue to evolve. It's a good thing. It still seems like not everybody has the bandwidth to go and attend or do attend. So I was like, so now is the carrot that you have the vote is gonna all of a sudden go from 1% to, so I'm in favor of the guardrails you stated of separating the votes, because you can always then see how the next year goes. And then you can always leg into it versus making any other changes. That's my 2 cents. I would emphasize guardrails. We're already collaborating more. People are welcome to attend, bifurcate the votes, see who attends. And it's really a question of, is it collaboration or is it collusion or is it NFL parlance of push, in a certain way, like you said, if all the anti-bike folks showed up and voted one way, so it'd be interesting to just see. the data shows next year. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as former vice chair of the transportation committee, in that specific example, I would welcome that. I think it's important to do, I think politics will happen on the board, and I would rather have them happen at the committee level than at the full board level. Because right now what we have are very, like, meetings that are getting longer and longer. I feel like in the last 2 years, we've seen more and more votes fail at full board. I mean, more and more is like 3 a year, but it's still more than 0. And I think it's better to push that down to the committee level. And I would be a little bit worried that if those votes don't count, then the carrot becomes significantly weaker. That being said, I think this bylaw language is fine, you know, in this specific issue. And I think if we want to make it so those votes don't count, I'm fine with that too. I just think that, like, it might not be the best idea going forward, but I think it's fine.
Bill?
Yeah, so some years of part of it, I mean, these are political issues that we deal with, particularly in these major committees and lands, consultations, and there's no avoiding that. Right, so, and we're not a body that, we're not a consensus-based body. I mean, historically, there are many, many of those, and you'll sit around in a circle at the talking stick, and everybody may bring an objection, and you'll talk it through, and you'll meet everyone's objection to you arrive at consensus. But we're a representative body, an advisory body, we work towards a majority vote. So I think the question of how to do the tally is the most intriguing one here, because in this type of body, it makes perfect sense to have a majority report and a minority report. So that gives us a very good sense of, you know, who's who, why they're coming, what their interests are and where they're moving towards. And it's all very much out in the open. And I think that the guardrails that you described, Brad, are very well thought out. So if we're getting somewhere where this proposal can be.
Thank you, Zul. Yeah, and to your final point, I think we are kind of starting to say the same thing. So unless there's other different items, I'll go to you, Nancy, and then we move on to the next item.
Okay, there's 2 things I'd like to say. One is I do believe this is going to make much longer committee meetings, because instead of having 12 at land use, we might have 20, and each person will speak and speak and speak. So bring your sleeping bags, because they're going to be very long meetings. I think that's the first thing we need to keep in mind. And the second thing, which is really important to me, is rather than characterizing our committee members as our committee meetings as battles, I would like us to try to commit to being kind and respectful to one another, and at least have something that I call garden variety civility. To me, the idea of a battle does not fit well from my point of view in the work that we do on our committees and full board. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, I'm going to go online to attendees. Charles?
Sorry, 1 second. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay, you can unmute, Charles.
Hello, I'm a member of the public. I'm a constituent of this district and of this community board. I am not in favor of this amendment. I'd like to add some quick comments. I'll be fast. You know, when one applies for a community board position, they go through an application process. And in the application process, it says very clearly that you need to dedicate time to participate and, you know, participate in these committees and things like that. And it makes me feel very sad that this amendment is characterized as to try to give an incentive to people to basically do what they should be doing when they signed up to be a community board member. Kind of does not make sense to me. I'm also worried as a member of the public that I feel it's very unfair that, for example, with the transportation committee, when there's negative feedback about bike lanes or concerns about safety of pedestrians, us members of the public, we get our point of view watered down. And sometimes there's even board members who say, oh, we can't put that there. It doesn't sit right. Let's just not, focus on that. But then you guys want to have board members be able to vocalize an opposition to whatever. And I just think there's a bit of an imbalance. In one hand, sometimes the public get dismissed or don't even get their voice properly represented because of whatever reason. And then you guys want to have your, other alternative view raised. But I will end with this. At the end of the day, guys, it's an advisory board. This is not city council. This is not Congress. This is just an advisory board at the lowest level of local government, basically a glorified, neighborhood watch. So I don't think it needs to be taken that seriously of some sort of report about what non-committee members think or anything like that. And as a member of the public, I'm not interested in that at all whatsoever. And I really don't believe many members of the public would be either. And remember, hardly any of the members of the public do even attend these board meetings. So who is that for? At the end of the day, is it narcissism? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I don't know what that's all about anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Okay.
Are we finished with the issue? Can I say one last thing?
Sure.
So, thank you, everybody, for the feedback. I am going to, I appreciate all the comments folks have made. I think that the, separating out the votes makes a ton of sense to me. I'm happy with that change. I think carving out the executive committee part makes a ton of sense as well, so that makes sense. I do, however, feel that those votes should be counted equally, as committee member votes. We have public members in the Landmarks Committee. They have full rights. They have full votes there. They're not even appointed members of the community board. I don't see why somebody who's putting the time, the energy, the effort, and who's a member of this community board should not have an equal say in those meetings. So I'll be making those two edits to the amendment, and I'll be submitting that prior to the next board meeting.
Send it to Marisa to send around.
Gotcha. And there will be likely co-sponsors to this as well.
And you're saying you will not include anything about attendance?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize. Yes,
Okay.
and I will include your language about attendance for 2 votes. Right?
Yeah.
Making that distinction that no matter your attendance, you can still show up, but to vote, you need to be a member in good stead. Those 3 things I'm good with.
Are you able to send that to me by Thursday, or will that come later?
I can, yes, I'll send you tomorrow.
I just want to know if I'm able to include it in the whole.
Okay, you need, what time do you need it on?
Well, it's a holiday, right? So I mean, it could be midday on Thursday.
Sure, I will get you something midday Thursday.
Great.
Okay, so then now we are in new business. Hopper.
Sorry, I couldn't get this in time to make the formal agenda, but I had one topic I wanted to raise for us based on the survey results. One of the themes that I noticed, and Nancy even alluded to it about some of the longer meetings. One of the themes I noticed is some folks are a little frustrated that the meetings can run a little long. And, we have committee meetings that can sometimes run 3 hours, full board meetings that can run 4. We're not as bad as CB8, but the meetings can be a little long. And I know people have childcare, elder care, work responsibilities. And to encourage participation, I want to think about whether we could, maybe as an exec, come up with some non-binding norms that we suggest to committee chairs on how to run meetings a bit more efficiently, for their consideration. And those norms, I've never been a committee chair, but I did chair the daylighting task force, much more limited. It's just one topic, but there were some things that I tried to adopt that I thought were somewhat successful, and maybe we could think about. Some norms could include letting folks who do outside presentations, which happen from time to time, give them a suggested time limit to say, we like to see our outside presenters limit themselves to 10 minutes, maybe if it's a city 15, something like that. I've seen the gamut. I've seen folks come to some of our board meetings that they're very well meaning, but with PowerPoints of over 100 pages, that means you're going to be there for hours. And is that really the best use of everyone's time? Because people will take questions as well. So maybe limit the length of time from outside presenters. Maybe we could also say, if a topic has a lot of people who've signed up to talk about it, proactively limit public comment to 2 minutes. Another suggestion could be to tell committee and potentially non-committee members, folks who show up, that there's a hope to get through meetings effectively, and they should try to consolidate questions and avoid comments, and let chairs know that they're empowered to end discussion if they need to. They feel like topics have been said a lot, or people, the same voices are saying things frequently. I was really concerned with that in the survey results. Some people said some of the meetings are too long, that they feel like they can't even be part of this board anymore. And I think some very simple suggestions that are non-binding might help, but I'm curious what people.
Sure.
I'd be curious what people or what chairs do in their committees for questions from the public. I've seen sometimes chairs say questions from the public are allowed so for example, in transportation, if the Department of Transportation is coming and presenting a plan, I have seen in the past with previous chairs, questions of the public are not allowed to the presenter. What you do is you make we did the presentation, public comment, and then if those comments were interesting enough that a committee member wanted to ask the question to the presenter, they could do that. More recently, I think we've been letting members of the public ask questions directly to the DOT, which can take a lot of time. So I'm curious what chairs do, and if it's going to be non-binding guidelines, just have that knowledge sharing.
I'm gonna keep going through kind of some of these and then maybe we circle back. Marisa.
Just to Samir's point, I just want to make sure everyone understands that for city agencies, coming to a community board and presenting is part of their public outreach. So it is important to allow people to speak directly to the agencies and give them the opportunity to answer. That it's sort of part of our mandate.
I love Samir's suggestion, having facilitating meetings of 3 and conventions of 300 and public events of 30,000. There are ways to facilitate these meetings very, very effectively. And when you have an applicant come, you can give them a specific time and ask them to keep to that. And also, when someone has raised a point and someone is just echoing that point, you can move ahead as a facilitator. We've heard that, thank you. And often what happens at most meetings, there are people, often like myself, who are eager to speak and will rise and do so, and then maybe want to speak again. And then there are people at the back of the room in various parts of the room, and you can see their brains are turning. We need to hear from those people. So these are very essential fundamentals of good facilitation. So I think what Ankur is proposing is a very, very good way for us to and make it non-binding, because you are appointing chairs, with whatever process you are using, and so they should have some leeway to run the meetings as they choose. But Ankur is really to very good process.
You're right.
I think it's fine to give chairs guidance on presentation length. I imagine presenters are already getting that guidance, perhaps from the office but I think that's fine. Anecdotally, from my experience, what drives meeting length is committee members talking.
Yeah.
And I just don't know that you're gonna get around. It's like, we need to shut up more if we want to get out faster.
I want the chair to be empowered to say that, exactly that.
It already is, like,
But
if
I want
if you wanna remind, that's fine, if you wanna remind chairs to do that, but you have to remember that the chair is not a dictator. I mean, the chair needs to facilitate conversation, not between the same 3 people.
Yes,
Certainly,
so, yeah.
I agree, but to some extent, it's like, what can you do? I mean, but I agree, I understand the sentiment,
So
but
to that point, something I've been trying to be more strict about personally at full board is that I make sure that I get through everyone before I come back to anyone.
That's fair.
That's a good
And also, when we get back to someone, that's it, they're done, so that we don't hear from them again.
but
I keep a physical.
And I know that at committee,
yes,
it
exactly.
is slightly more challenging. Maybe it's 3 rounds rather than 2. I don't think it needs to be quite so rigid, but I think that ethos is something that would be valuable to deal with what seems to be the biggest.
I think when you're
driver.
hammering out a resolution, you need some level of back and forth.
Correct.
So there needs to be flexibility there. I agree.
Melissa.
As someone who is newly moving into a chair role, I would love some best practices and what is effective in terms of efficiency.
Best practice.
So I am very supportive of this.
Okay. Libby.
I found that reminding, if anyone has a suggestion on how to remind members that asking questions that were either covered in the presentation and additionally covered in the material circulated prior to the meeting is maybe not the most efficient use of time.
Begging comes.
Even the begging, in a very desperate manner does not seem to be effective. So if anyone has suggestions, I'd very much take them. But I think that it can be helpful. But also reminding people sort of, like you're sort of a dinner party host when you're kind of like, we're going in through to the dining room now. We are in the dining room. We are sitting in the dining room. So that can be helpful to remind people which part of the meeting they're in, so they don't ask questions at the wrong time. And then you have to have a little prep to be like, what's your point? Please don't repeat it. But repeating it sort of 3 times in different ways can be helpful. Not always. Can be.
So I'll come back to you, but I think what I'd like to do, just because this is new business, so not everyone had a chance to think about this, is everyone goes away, thinks about this, and then we have a very long break. So when we come back in September at exec, I would like to maybe have the next round of this discussion where we say, here are the 7 things we think ought to be considered by chairs.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure.
That might make that more efficient.
Yeah. Go
Is
for it.
that actually Ankur should draft something and we should respond to the draft.
Perfect.
Rather than us co-creating a draft.
Are you all right with that, Ankur?
I am happy to do it.
Great.
And yes, to sort of answer
Reactive.
your point, Libby, and I hope we're, again, non-binding, but I hope what these will do. Sometimes I know when I used to, I was a public school teacher before I had to run a crowd and move it along. Sometimes it helps to say, these are the rules. And then it makes it less personal if you want to cut someone off who's out of control. And that you could say, our guidelines say that we have to limit comment to an hour or whatever it is. And maybe that will help. Great. I will come up with something.
Quick
Thank you.
comment, Brad. You know, when people join the board after they get appointed, they're offered a lot of good jobs by the borough president's office. Unfortunately, how to facilitate a meeting is not one of them, and maybe that's something that we can bring back, because that would be very, very helpful, very much in line with what Ankur is suggesting here. It's best practices in facilitation.
You obviously haven't been to a borough president's meetings.
No comment. Okay. Any other new business?
You can say that.
Oh, Charles, go ahead. Is he able to?
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 quick things. I was very pleasantly surprised that and was not aware when the public speakers from the Times Square building in our district owned by Breaking Ground raised their concerns at the recent quality of life committee. I would hope that committee could also consider the problems at the Prince George, which is a building I live in the district, which is also run by Breaking Ground. And I'm hoping maybe they could collaborate with the member on the board who has mentioned publicly that they're in the same building as me, who has more information about the struggles we have in this building. And really, if we're going to get Breaking Ground and CCS to come to the board, I know Community Board 4 is involved with that. We should also address the problems at the Prince George also. And my final comment is about if in future, hopefully, maybe after summer, the Parks Public Spaces Committee can look into ADA viewing sections at parades, because it seems to be, I was very disappointed that there was nothing at the Gay Pride Parade in our district. There was no ADA viewing area. Actually, there was no representation of people with disabilities who are gay in that parade whatsoever, which is also disappointing, but I know we can't do anything about that. But the main thing is the ADA viewing sections at parades in our district would be really good to look into. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. Any other new business? All right, thank you, everyone. See you next week.